It's been a long time since I've done any sort of overclocking or trying to get on the world leaderboard for Hall of Fame, and that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna try and see if I can't come up with some stupid method getting myself back on the leaderboard. All right, so a couple things here. We're gonna do Port Royal today. Here's the Port Royal current leaderboard. Sens has got like a 1,000-point lead over OGS, almost 4,000 megahertz on his core. We will not be anywhere near those scores. These guys are all doing custom LN2 mods and probably custom voltage controllers, and all these cards are pushing almost 1,000 watts. It's insane. I just want to get somewhere in the top 100. So I am nowhere on this board because I have not touched overclocking of these cards in a year. I just need to get a score of a 29,449. And that's only a core clock of 3030 with a memory clock of 1444. Ironically, I don't really have a lot of 4090s laying around. I have the FE card, and I have this MSI Supreme X Liquid. I actually have two of them, by the way. I have a pre-production sample, and then I have this one, which is a retail sample. I'm gonna be using this one today because it's liquid cooled. The downside about the MSI cards, and it's not gonna really matter today, but if I ever try to like push the voltage in any way or try to do voltage mod, the BIOS on the MSI cards have a max of 520 watts. I think that's because MSI knows, I think they knew going into all of the 4090 stuff about the melting connectors. I really do, because every other brand on the market will go up to 600 watt, which is what the spec apparently of the cable is. But if you actually go and do some research, and I did a little bit of this on my own earlier, and I was looking at custom BIOS available on Tech Power Up, I have not really heard about many MSI cards melting. So, in fact, they even have I think their Gaming X Trio card is a limit of 480 watts, which is really, really low. So I don't know if that 520 is gonna stop me today. Now, what I did notice, like 13900K is obviously how a lot of these guys are getting an uplift in their score because of the fact that, believe it or not, the 4090 does hit the upper limits of a 12900K, and that's why I upgraded my 12900K to a 13900K in my Z690 board. So it is overclocked as well. So what I need to at least see is, where is this landing currently? 26,104. So yeah, that makes perfect sense when I said I think the highest I got was like a 27,000 on one of my cards. It's a pretty decent amount of heat coming out of here right now too. This was all factory settings out of the box, no overclocking, no fan curve stuff. So I'm gonna now go 100% on the fan, max out our power limit, and I'm gonna go like 150 on the core clock, like 500 on the memory right now, and see what this gets us. So I just jumped up to a 27,249 by doing nothing except bumping up the fan and increasing a few sliders. So I've got to go back to the 3D Mark Hall of Fame. I think I said I have to get like at least 29,000. I need to hit a 29,449. So 29,450. I have to hit a 29,450, because even if I tie, I won't take his spot. Whoever got it first will get it. There is a 600 watt BIOS, but I don't know anything about it. And I can't find any details of anyone saying it didn't blow up their shit, so I don't necessarily want to try that yet. So what I'm gonna do right now to just sort of try and figure out where I'm stable is I'm gonna put this into windowed mode, looping. While it's running, I'm gonna adjust my clock speeds, rather than just trying to see if it can make it all the way through, because that's the next step, is seeing, can I make it all the way through? Well, I'm gonna be limited here, because this is one of the NVIDIA revision cards that has a 1050 limitation on the voltage. So when the 4090 first launched, 1.1 volts or 1100 millivolts was the voltage limit. I'm wondering if the new revisions have something to do with the melted cables, because 1050 now is the cap. That 50 millivolts, believe it or not, makes up a lot of additional clock speed availability if voltage is the reason why stability is the problem. So that means this card is absolutely positively not going to do what I need it to do. It's performing really well. It's at 2760 right now. It's at 47 degrees on the core. If I look at the hotspot temp right now, memory's at 68, hotspot's at 54, GPU's at 50 or 45. I mean, these are great. I can even go as high as like 150 on the overclock right there. Board power draw right now is still only about 435. Oh, and there's a crash. And I know 100% in my brain that it's crashing because of the 1050 and the frequency I'm trying to run it at. So now we would have to be dealing with like voltage mods or whatever. However, I do have the other Supreme Liquid that should be an 1150 card, but I do remember that one just did not perform as well as our Founders card. Because my idea was I was gonna take this radiator and I was gonna take these Delta fans and their 4,000 RPM of finger chopping goodness.
I was talking about power supply.
And then I was gonna have these shrouds on here to help funnel the air into, these are just fans with the center cut out, to shroud the air into it. And then I was gonna have these on the underside to give me some spacing between the rad and the fan. That way I can get a little bit better air across all the fins. And you're gonna have that mounted to the radiator, but it's not gonna matter if the voltage won't let me go any higher. Let me just throw the other Supreme on there to see, is it an 1100 volt, wow. 1.1 volt or 1100 millivolt card? Because now I'm just curious, and then we'll decide what I'm gonna do from there. So the second card's in here, we were still getting 1050 out of it, but apparently to activate 1100, you have to max the voltage slider out. So like in 30 series, that was just sort of a placebo slider. It didn't really do anything. But on this one, it actually gives you the extra 50 millivolts if you go plus 100. The problem is it wasn't showing up in this version of Afterburner because this version of Afterburner was so freaking old. It said it was updated, but it wasn't. So anyway, even the check for updates didn't trigger an update. So let's see now what we get. We were able to get over 3,000 megahertz in Heaven, but Heaven doesn't hit the RT cores. So there's our 1100, and it's funny because our temperatures are actually up. They're up from where they were at 1050. So that shows us something's actually happened. Look, there's the 3060 right there. So it is hit, look at, see, I'm like 100 megahertz up right now from just 50 millivolts. It just soft crashed, but still, that's an improvement because I feel like if we can get those temperatures down, that'll help because it did hit 48C right there. Believe it or not, what 10 degrees difference makes in stability is huge. Like I feel like I had to get the other one back out again, even though we reboxed it now to see which one has the better silicon. Because that's what the thing is, I need to now have multiple samples to find which one clocks the best. And the backplate is really hot even under load. So there's improvement to be had by pointing a fan at the back and everything because we need to cool it off as much as possible. So there's 3045. I only put it down one bin. I just want to see it get through one whole test. There's a crash. So it crashed as the temp started climbing. I'm gonna shut this down. I'm gonna throw the other card on just to see. Now I don't know if the other MSI card is the 300 or the dash 300 or the dash 301. I don't know which core it is. So we now have to check. I thought we were on the early model a second ago, but we weren't. We were on the new model, which had the 1100. I wanna see now which one is better. It's because of the plastic shield. And then this, like it interferes, it hits. You can see it's literally hitting the motherboard right there. So looking at the BIOS and GPU-Z, it's funny because the slider on the, technically this is like pre-production, but not really. It is though, goes to 117, whereas the card we got a few months later for a build through a different source goes to 110. But what we'll notice is that the card that goes to 110 has a maximum or a default of 480 instead of 450, but they both have a max of 530. So just want to point that out. The reason why this extra 7% is the difference between 450 and 480 on the default. So you're not actually getting more power limit there. It's just, yeah, so because it has a lower default, it has to make up for it to get it to 530. Because that is always a percentage of default. So that's why those numbers sometimes look different between different revisions and such of graphics cards. It's funny, this video turned into like, can I get back on the leaderboard to, can I find a card that will even allow me to have a chance of getting back on the leaderboard? Because I don't have NVIDIA, I don't have EVGA this time that I could be like, can you send me like 9 cards so I can find the good one? Oh, how we all miss EVGA. No one more than me. And yes, I did check my not 4090, does have an 1100 millivolt BIOS. However, that card is just, it's not stable anywhere above like 2900, just because the card has a band-aided BIOS to make it work enough for me to be able to use it on the daily basis. And it is being used on a daily basis. It's living its best life. So anyway, with that said, here we go again. So by overclocking this card at 1100 millivolts, we are seeing the 530 watt limit get hit. And here's the thing. I'm not gonna be able to push the clocks any higher if I'm hitting power and voltage. So I think the 600 watt power limit BIOS, I need to try it. if it's reducing voltage slightly, what does that do to my clock? If it's on the edge of stability, it crashes because it needs all the millivolts. And yes, 5 millivolts can quite honestly be the difference between stable all day long and not. So it clearly took effect. I now have a 125 power limit. And this new BIOS also has a target of 480. So that's 25% additional of 480, which is 120. 120 plus 480 is 600. So clearly it took effect. NVIDIA BIOS right there. Now that this BIOS is loaded, I can just kind of let this monitor. I can see if I'm going to get any sort of a uplift in my score. Then I'll play with keeping it as cold as possible because voltage is still my ultimate limiting factor here. And the only way I'll get more stability is through lowering temperatures. Okay, so we're back to the retail card. As you can see, we're at 54C, which is not ideal, but we're still at 3000 megahertz and we haven't crashed. So that makes this already a better silicon. At least the ASIC quality is better with this card than the other one. So now that I've figured out which card, and this is running the 600 watt BIOS, by the way, 29,450 is where I have to go to at least get in the top 100. I don't feel like this is that. I really don't. But let's see where we are. 27,863. I am so far away. Like, it is not, I don't understand. Can't decide between performance or noise optimization for your next PC case? Then Be Quiet has you covered with their new Dark Base Pro 901. The interchangeable top and front cover allow you to choose either maximum airflow or virtually inaudible operation. Fan brackets with integrated hubs and pogo connectors make cable management easier than it's ever been, while a touch-sensitive front I/O panel provides state-of-the-art operation. To see the full list of specs of the Be Quiet Dark Base Pro 901, see our full breakdown video at the link in the description below. Yeah, it crashed at 3045. I now need to move on to the temperature section of this whole thing because if I'm just wasting time now if I don't. So here's what I had in mind. Okay, if anyone puts their finger in that, you fucking deserve it. And this is what I came up with. The caution tape is like legit caution tape because I don't have anything to really like protect your fingers there. I mean, I do have one, but anyway, these have to be powered off their own fan header right here, which is plugged into SATA power because they pull so many amps, they'll blow up a PC header, like on a motherboard. Ask me how I know. I know someone's gonna argue and be like, it won't do that. It only goes fast as supplied. Ask me how I know. Anyway, so this is what we've got. Two extremely fast server grade 120 millimeter Delta fans, the same ones we use to literally obliterate a carrot to prove a point of why you don't touch these. And the AC that's over here, which you guys know I'm notorious for. It's on, getting cold right now. So we will be just letting it suck in all the AC air that it can get right there. So let me get this up and running, get things adjusted. Okay, so as you can see, there's obviously heat coming out of that. There's the AC. Look at the temperature difference of the rad as soon as it, there. Can you tell what the radiator is? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Blah, 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 blah. So you see I've got it sort of stovepiping here. At least that hot air will rise up into there and way out of the way. I love it. Oh my God, see, I just tried, see what I mean? So I've lowered the GPU clock a little bit to 150, but I've raised the memory clock. So let's just see what happens here. We'll see what our max temps are. I might come down only like 5 or 6 degrees, to be honest, but we were at 53 before. I need to keep it down into the 40s. I really do. Ideally, keeping it down to the 30s, but I would probably need ice water to do that. The radiator is at, oh, you can see the warm half of the rad. So you can see as it's entering the rad, the coolant's about 23C. As it's exiting the rad, it's about 15C. It stayed at 3015 the entire time. Its max temp was 47. So I was right. I said I would lose about 6C, and I did. There's a 28072. So I gained something, but I'm sure as hell not anywhere near the leaderboard. I think these guys are cheating somehow. Now's where I'm gonna do a little bit of tuning while it's running. All right, so 1200 on the RAM, 1400 on the RAM, 1500 on the RAM. What I'm looking for is an insta-crash. Is there something wrong with this? That's 1900. That can't be. That can't be right. Max the slider at 2000. Okay, so it did something. Something was happening, right? So 2000 megahertz overclock. Oh, whoa. I should probably oh, the whole system crashed. Okay, so.
Dude, it is.
Uh-oh. All right, so it passed at 1,700. Do we gain score? 28,237. How are they doing it? How are they getting a 30,000? I'm gonna go one more. I'm gonna go up to 1,800 on the RAM. I'm gonna go one more bin on the GPU, and then this is probably where I'm gonna have to end up calling it. I just don't think. I don't know. There's got to be something I'm not aware of in maximizing score in Port Royal for this generation. I have not spent a lot of time with this gen card in terms of XOC, and this isn't XOC. This is just OC. At least I learned that you can hit the 530 watt limit on this card. I think the 530 watt limit, honestly, was there on MSI's part to try and maybe they knew something about the melty connectors. And so they were just like, let's just not let them even get anywhere near 600 watt. Maybe that lower cap alone could be enough to account for maybe connector not being in all the way. I honestly don't know why they chose 530 over 600, which is the spec for that cable. But anyway, we were able to get the 1100 millivolts out of it, was able to get above 530 watt, and it does go above 530 watts. And I learned something about this card at least, but I didn't learn how to get on the leaderboard. I'm pretty sure this is not gonna be enough to do it. Because here's the thing, I'm at the same average frequency that the folks that are on the board are, but they have significantly higher scores. It's 28,385. See, I'm getting such tiny score improvements. Like, it's super tiny. It's not doing anything here. All right, so there's a 28,423. I am still 1,000 points away from where I need to be. All right, so it's just starting to crash over and over and over now, which happens every now and then. I have a couple suspicions. One, this test bench running, the 13900K running on Z690 should not be a problem. Z690 is everything Z790 is. You get nothing extra with Z790. Should not matter. However, I feel like if I'm gonna keep doing this in the future, I need a specific 3D Mark benchmark system that does nothing but run 3D Mark. It's got a like skeleton version of Windows on there with no background tasks running that are not absolutely pertinent to keep the OS bare kernel going. I also, yeah, I don't know if it's a system thing where there's just a lot of inefficiencies in the system that might be holding back our score, because my frequencies are not that far away from where like everyone is in well, let's put it this way. I'm pretty sure I got right there where at least number 100 is in terms of clock speeds. So that tells me there's something else going on here. Here's that 3030 at 1444 megahertz. I've already passed it 3030 and I was way above 1444 megahertz on the RAM speed, or the VRAM speed. This card was at 61C. You know what that tells me? That was just an air-cooled card that he probably had an AC pointed at, if that. So there's something else going on here, and I might actually have to just consider using the Founders Edition card for this, only because we know NVIDIA bins those the highest. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and cut it here because let's just say that this might all be a precursor leading into another brawl, if you will, between another content creator and I who are notorious for going at each other when it comes to these leaderboards, but not in the way at which you guys are thinking. So stay tuned for that. There might actually be some fun, entertaining type of content coming throughout the rest of this year, designed to just be lighthearted and, you know, shit talk. So, all right, guys, thanks for watching. Very disappointing. But that's okay. This is the first time I have not maintained the leaderboard, at least being on the leaderboard, through the life of a GPU generation. Clearly I suck.